I think so. Hello. 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 All right. All right. You good? All right. Space, too far from anything to be nothing. A blue light shines into the void. Shapes appear, people, stories, wonders, and mysteries. Live from Elgin, Illinois at the Blue Box Cafe, it's Tales by the Blue Light. I'm your host, James Wilder. So every month on this show, we showcase a brand new sci-fi, horror, and fantasy story by me, as well as something from our guests if we have any. This month, we don't. These stories come from all over time, space, and other realities, and they're all called here through this blue light. As a special one. It bends our world into a place where stories become real, a liminal space where our own dreams can take form. We glide between these realities, these possibilities, and we get stories. So that's what we do here, and we're excited to bring you what we have. But before we get to that, I've been practicing golf. So let me just get out my clubs. I've just been informed by my producer that swinging a golf club around right now would endanger innocent people and damage recording equipment and windows. Fine. Next time I'll bring a broadsword. Right. Well, back to what I actually have a degree in. Calling stories from across time, space, and other realities through a blue light. It's a very specialized degree. See if you can find it at any colleges nearby. See what the light has culled from the shadows today. Ah, our first entry, a little horror tale we're calling Purity. The banister was slick with spit, and as I tried to hold onto it for balance, I fell forward down the stairs as the thing behind me slammed into the wall of the landing. And as I tumbled, the hissing, gnashing sound trailing behind me. I remembered how this all started. Janine picked up the frozen entree, the coal rolling out of the stand-up freezer as she kept the door propped open with her elbow. It says it's organic, she said up the passage. That really doesn't mean anything, I replied. They toss that word on everything these days. Like, she looked down at the organic toothpaste she'd thrown in the cart. Not that. You've already made your thoughts quite clear there, John. Can't imagine why it'd be offended you'd make fun of me for stuff you know I buy every time we go to the grocery store. Worst possibility is you never actually noticed. I wasn't entirely sure how to respond. She just shook her head and pushed the cart on. Janine watched the microwave jar rotate around and around, the gentle hum the only sound as she pressed her forehead against it. You shouldn't lean against that. It'll give you cancer. She rolled her eyes. Now who's the one with a crazy talk? Of course it won't. Do you even know how microwaves work? I didn't. Actually, I didn't have to because I didn't admit it just then. I just frowned. Oh, don't give me that, she sighed. It's during dinner, I shrugged. Let's just see what's on Netflix. If we just see what's on Netflix, we won't choose anything. We'll just scroll through Netflix for 90 minutes arguing about what to watch. Pick a genre, then, I forwarded. She rocked her head back and forth. Sure, have anything in mind? I grinned. Horror. She smiled back. At least we still have something in common. I wasn't sure what to say to that. Janine and I had met in college, but we didn't start dating till later. We ran into each other again in a grocery store, both looking at the copy of Spider-Man 3 in the bargain bin. We loved the movie. Critics and fanboys be damned, especially the scene where Peter Parker gets an emo haircut and has a dance number. Classic. Of course, you might say this was a forecast of a relationship to come because the biggest thing we had in common was a sincere love of movies people considered to be bad. I'm not making jokes over the movies or admiring their faults and still enjoying them. I mean, we downright love the kinds of movies most people cringe over. Waterworld, Super Mario Brothers, Hudson Hawk, Ishtar. You know, the kind of movies that people just shout out as examples of bad movies, even though they've never even seen the box art for the film in real life. We'd sit in front of the screen night after night and watch those movies, cuddled up together with the coffee table laid out with food, usually TV dinners, but always a bowl of popcorn in the middle of it. Even if they're what other people think of as trash, you have to do movies right. This night, we cuddled up and scrolled through the Netflix horror feed, looking for something that perked our fancy. Werewolves? Janine asked. I scrolled through the description of the werewolf movie. Looks like it's a romance. The werewolf bites a woman, and then she falls in love with him. Janine let out a long, exasperated moan. Oh, that's so messed up. Twilight ruined everything. I just want my monsters to eat people, not give them disease-based Stockholm Syndrome. It sounds like he kidnaps her, too. Regular Stockholm Syndrome, she yelled. You might think we also bonded over a hatred of Twilight, but I have to admit I was a fan. Team Jacob. Though, admittedly, I only like the first 2 books. Well, then we have the foot glitched over the cliche-looking horror movie. The name swapped with a children's show about ponies and the description of some action movie from the 90s. Then it all fizzled and turned into a jumble of letters and numbers. Then the name appeared. Hianasoth. Description. The world is a poison. You are its keeper. Drip down the back of your throat. Can you taste it? It's waiting for your taste. The world is slick with your failures. The image for the movie was a girl sitting in an abandoned building. Not a house, but more like an old warehouse, looking right at the camera. It's raining, which we can see from a window behind her, and the rain is coming in through a small hole in the ceiling. The water falls on the left side of the girl's face. She doesn't react to it. She doesn't move. She blinks, as though the rain means to her. Either she can't sense it, or it's been there so long she's forgotten it isn't supposed to be like that. The left side of her blue dress is soaked, but not the right. Looks weird. Let's watch it, Janine said. I felt a little creeped out, but then again, we were going to watch a horror movie. That was, in this case, a good sign. Janine picked up the tray. She'd set the plastic tray of her TV on and began to dig in. I hit play. From the menu screen, looking right at us. The water falls on her for minutes. I didn't time it precisely, but it was at least 4. Finally, she spoke. She said, "There's only so much time to prepare yourself. And he thirsts so." Psh, who thirsts so? Janine quipped. Hianasoth thirsts, the girl said. From the left side of the screen, a big gray cloth appeared. It breathed heavily, and from under it came slick, globby black legs with too many joints. The cloth looked lumpy and tall, as though it housed a great beast underneath, presumably the same thing the legs came from. The little girl turned to the beast. "Why, hello, Hianasoth." The thing whispered in a raspy but grandfatherly voice. "What must all beings do to live?" "Why, we must eat and sleep." The stuff under the cloth scuttled, even though its legs didn't move from its spot. "Child, now, what do you presume Hianasoth must do?" Putting her finger to her chin. Janine slurped up the last of her meal. "You do not look tired, Hianasoth." "I am not." "It's rumbling." "It is." "You must hunger." It stomped its many feet. "Very good, child. And what do we remain?" "There. We must remain pure. We must keep our bodies clean. We must be pure, so we be the hosts for you and your feast." "Do little children do?" it asked. She grinned and held her arms up. "I am pure." It stepped in front of the camera and then lifted up its cloth. We could only hear the sound of the little girl being eaten, thanking the monster through her cries of agony. There were splatters, and her shoe rolled off into the concrete floor, followed shortly after by pieces of her. Hianasoth turned to us. Its face, if it had one, covered with gray cloth. Where's my next feast? Janine put her hand over her mouth. I think I'm going to be sick. That was pretty messed up. No, this meal, I think I'm going to be sick. She got up and ran into the kitchen where I sprinted out after her to see her start puking into the sink. I knew that wasn't the best place to puke, but it also wasn't the worst, so I let her keep having for food, coming over to gently rub shoulders. So good, she whispered, spitting out some bile. Let's get you to bed. You need to sleep this off. She nodded, and I walked her up to bed. With some help, she slid under the covers and very quickly began snoozing. I went downstairs, turned off everything, brushed my teeth to join her, sliding in to spoon her from behind. Close. Soon I drifted off to sleep too. My dream was less than pleasant. I dreamed. I was standing on a tall pillar, like a black obelisk with the point at the top cut off. Below me were a throng of people looking up at me as the endless desert rolled behind them. Outside, I looked up to see it was raining on half of me. I knew my place in the universe, and then a sound woke me up. I didn't bolt upright. I wish I'd been that dramatic. I just sort of moaned and slowly blinked awake as I registered what the sound was. By which I hadn't heard that sound before. It sounded like someone running up and down the stairs, each interval different lengths, along with a wet smacking sound and a dull thud. I began to get up when I realized Janine wasn't in bed anymore. Suddenly, more cautious, I grabbed the flashlight from the bedside table and walked out of the bedroom into the landing by the stairs. Ran up the stairs and looked at me. It was hunched over, drooling. Its impossibly long tongue was hanging off the railing. The eyes were white, the hair hang loose. It was Janine. She fixed her dead white eyes on me and began to spider crawl on all fours towards me, her tongue dragging on the carpet. She huffed and hacked as she crawled. I only had one place to retreat to, the bedroom. I tried to rush in and shut the door, but she bolted through, charging straight past me, wall where her head collided with a dull thud. She crab-crawled in a circle and looked at me, a thin trickle of blood now running down her forehead. She looked at me. I tried to think of a plan and grabbed the bedsheet right off, throwing it on top of her. For a moment, she seemed completely helpless. She struggled under the sheet like a pet, unable to save itself from a minor prank from its owner. I kept the flashlight pointed at her, calling her name out. Janine! Janine! I wasn't sure what reply I expected, but she didn't say anything back, just huffed and hacked. Moving. She didn't crawl out from under the blanket. It was like something under the blanket was boiling. Her back under the sheet grew. The sound of bones snapping and skin rupturing came from under the blanket. I felt sick. The blanket and black legs snapped out from underneath it. It followed me down the stairwell, slamming into the wall and shaking the whole house. I reached over to the split-stick railings, but they just made me lose my balance. I fell. I tumbled down the stairs, landing in a crumpled pile at the bottom. It leapt down, landing above me. I could feel its lukewarm, bubbling torso pressing on me. It asked, and then I knew. And it bit me. Moment for it to register. The ruffling of the blanket, showing that I knew instantly that I was not pure, that I had lived on a diet of Red 40 and Cheetos along with energy drinks my entire life. It screeched and squealed, its skin collapsing in on itself till the sheet fell on the floor into a pile of mangled body parts and black ooze that used to be Janine. I cried, then pulled my phone and began to record this. I could see the bite it took out of me. It wasn't small. I'll die soon, very soon in all likelihood, but I'm leaving this record. You need to know to avoid Yanosov. Don't watch it on Netflix, even though it has all 5-star ratings. I can see so much of my blood. It's mixing in with what's on the floor. Together forever. It's getting dark. I can't believe people hated that dance scene in Spider-Man 3. I can't. The light. It's waiting for me on the other side. Thank you. All right. So, this episode of Tales by the Blue Light has been brought to you by Hedgehogs. Hedgehogs don't have an agenda, but one accidentally walked over its owner's keyboard and PayPal'd us $50, and we don't want to give it back. Hedgehogs. Cute, cuddly, prickly, and not to be trusted with your credit card information. So please, give it to them. All right. So today we have a very special guest on the show. He's older than the Pyramids of Giza, and he likes to party. Please welcome Berlinax, the Lord of Eternal Chaos.
Hello, foolish mortal. You deigned to invite me on your program?
You actually emailed me about coming on here today.
So I did. You a special message to your listeners, a message of fear, a message that beats like the heat within your chest, yearning to escape.
Really? So what's the message?
You fools! None of you appreciated disco when you had the chance.
I'm sorry, what?
You, mortal, in the earth and be feasted on by the worms? Did you not realize that disco led to a massive shift in music? One which still makes the earth tremble. Did you not hear the soundtrack to Saturday Night Fever? Did it not bring stirrings to your soul?
You came here to talk about disco?
Of course I did. It's not the only thing that really matters. In all my millennia of being, ever since I slew my father, Torquin the Annihilator, and sucked his soul from his chest, nothing has given me such deep and solitary pleasure as disco. Tell me, has anyone made a groove as funky since Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes? Of course they haven't. And thus, human, you will burn, and their ashes will coat my lips with thunderous laughter. Ha ha ha.
Disco, right?
No, my record player broke. Now you will be doomed.
Okay. Actually, this is an iPhone. You can play music on it.
But it's so small, it will never hold all my tunes.
Actually, it holds like hundreds of them.
Hundreds, you say?
Hundreds.
Humanity has been spared this day, but your time will come soon. I will arise again, and you shall perish in a...
Oh no, don't say it.
Disco Inferno! Ha ha ha!
Well, that was something. And now we have another ad from our other sponsor this week, Disco. Ever wanted to wear a giant cursed Egyptian amulet, but been unsure of how to fit into your wardrobe? Disco can help. Disco is the perfect music aesthetic to fit in all of your cursed jewelry you can find. Drown out the screaming of the ghost of the man who owned your vintage gold watch with the sweet and funky tunes of disco. Disco, the music of the undead. Speaking of the supernatural, we're getting another broadcast from the abandoned bunker in the middle of nowhere in Utah. That's right. It's time for another edition of Monster Hunter Monthly. So let's switch over then to Magpie Jones in the bunker. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Magpie Jones, and welcome to another month where I'm coming to you with the latest news that's usually a month old about monsters, monster hunting, and why we do it. But this week, we have something different because we have reports coming in of a kaiju in Cincinnati. That's right, a kaiju in Cincinnati. From the sounds of it, the kaiju is feet tall, and the military has been called in to find it. Of course they have. Whenever there's an interesting monster, the military shows up. So I guess I won't actually be able to cover it because it looks like they're putting a gag order on it and already removing the affected areas from Google Maps so no one will ever see them. Classic cover-up, alas. So then, listeners, what should you do if you find a kaiju in your hometown? Well, here's our handy survival guide. Kaiju are giant monsters that terrorize cities and crush buildings. But you don't see them on the news, first of all, because they are rare, and second of all, because of... which of course means that... So with that information, you can easily know that... And because of that, we can be sure our broadcasts are never censored. If you see a kaiju, think about how big it is. A kaiju is the size of a very tall building, right? Now think about how big you are. Not very big at all, are you? The kaiju could crush you, couldn't it? So just avoid it because the military will handle it anyway. Go get a nice meal. Maybe eat some seafood, coconut shrimp sure sounds good. And if you can get out of town before the freeway is close trapping you in, you'll probably get quality service from the terrified waitstaff watching the news. So sit back, relax. And if the government doesn't solve it, probably doomed anyways. So now for some reader mail. Dear Magpie, I was hunting a monster, but it turned out it was just a deer. Are monsters even real? Frankly, stunned in Ohio. They are, and frankly, with the number of deer that crashed the windshield of my car in the middle of the night, I think we can count them up with werewolves. Next. Dear Magpie, are vampires allergic to garlic? One is coming over to watch a game soon, and I need to check. Party planner in Wisconsin. Yeah, vampires are very much allergic to garlic. That is actually true. So make sure any party supplies you buy are garlic free, or that could get awkward when your friend bursts into flames on the couch. Now, I was going to check on the Son of Sons this month, but I only got a charred letter from them saying hell is here, so I presume they'll write more next month. We'll see then, I suppose, how their search is going for that fire monster. So that's all there is from us here this month. Till next time. All right. So usually at this point in the show, we have a guest, but this week we don't have one once again. So we're going to do what we did last week, since, of course, this is the Doctor Who themed cafe. Later tonight, we are going to be showing Doctor Who. So we're going to do another reading from my Doctor Who poetry book, An Eloquence of Time and Space, except we're going to be doing something we didn't touch on last time, but was requested by the audience multiple times, the Day of the Doctor poem, which is very long. So after this, we'll get back onto stories, but here's a little taste of some Doctor Who goodness for you guys in the form of poetry. Doctor, by me. No more. No more, he said, and no more there was, like words whispering over the water. For just a moment, he muttered words into a fire, and there was light, and the light burned like glass, with the pale reflections of strangers and a billion tiny faces. Still, they said before, their words echoing over cradles, shushing themselves early into their mornings and wishing they'd heard it in the evenings, crushing the coal in their stockings on the trudge to school, wondering who the monsters were they'd talked about. But despite it all, they grew up. As we all do, with broad faces and thin faces and stubble on chins and legs. We said no more, but few had the decency to act on it, if it was decent at all. Decency. Decent people are rarities, of the kind you don't usually find. Pick them up and run with them like seashells singing the ocean. You can hear it again when you thought you had lost the song. Motorbikes. Decent people like motorbikes. Not to say other things aren't good, like feet or cars, but motorbikes, like bow ties, are cool. But despite all of that, the ruination of worlds is beyond the means of motorbikes and cool. And when decency becomes desperation, what can a good man do? Do not speak of how to be a good man. I have seen the last 10,000 years of desperation pass before me like a splinter box filled with my fingers and cut up with every sliver of the memories I had forgotten I forgot. When I walked across booted plains with roaring neighs and said, I am the doctor and I am the warrior, till I forgot who was who and let the potions dribble down my chin into a beard too weird for Shakespeare, though I hadn't met him yet in all those centennials of celebratory cavalry. We gallivanted across the aeons with our boxes and our console, with no one to console the cast of Caliban of me eternally hurt, at least for the day. And day by day we drew it on across that void and into the plains. We're coursing through our silent hours and casting off the memories of me, wiping me clean like you're pulling up a new tabula rasa with all your newfangled bow ties and tied-off pennants of terrible torment. You twirl along in your sand shoes and your sandwiches and survey the Surreys of time with hourglass-figured firebrands in your eyes. You burn and burn and burn and say you're not like you were as you let the fire run across your hands and into the bandages you left behind as an apology. But you're not Apollonian and too far from Asclepius to be a doctor. You're just doctoring your image to turn away the heat you lit yourself, firing away the last real danger to furnace the wrath of untold tales, losing years with every blink to get so tired, and how tied up you are to the passage of the past. And it was past till you took me there again when I didn't want to go. The showdown of all of us and myself. Wounded men go to pray to empty gods and nurse their wounds. A pool of Narcissus where we can all stay standing and admire the way we failed that day. but not before we find Fez's. Or maybe that's too late. Or is it early? Hello again, old me with your beard and the other one with too much hair gel. Well, he's one to talk when he has no taste in interior decoration. I quiet myself in triage and send out the seal in triplicate. I am a replicant of my own image, a zygon on a horse that is a horse to be hoarse when I see a queen. But we're all playing at royalty, fudging our way through the proper role of information and running amok when we're all among friends, picking up our nitpicks with hand mirrors. And oh, Clara, clear and good as osmosis, oscillating back and forth between 6 hands, running through corridors to TARDIS temporal interiors. And how many faces you must see of me, how many times must you gaze at my face and say, see here, this is that man, and manage to close your eyes and believe it when I can't believe myself. I've gone on so long and so much longer than I'd like, and it's all about me, isn't it? When I Coal Hill schooled those teachers and laughed my way into the Stone Age through a detour on Skaro and marked Polo all the way to moon bases and Mars, where I wrote my own story of me and Rapunzel's hair and ran away home to where they sent me up without dinner and another new face to army bases and lizard men, raising Lazarus to find myself off again and on again and writing Tin Can Genesis with faces of evil and winding my way to a Legopolis where I found enlightenment. Kinda, caving myself to a mysterious planets and courtrooms as my own jury, and then to remembrance at the circus and cursing Fenric to the day I finally celebrated New Year's and opened my eyes to harmony, and then forgot myself in Blood and Rage till I tired, and was absolutely fantastic on Big Brother, and it wasn't even the weakest link to Doomsday and goodbyes and so many cries, and if you blinked, you'd miss my humanity for what it was, and the end of time, and there I was again, opening Pandora's box and winding through rivers, all for one Gallifrey to the end at Trenzalore, A to Z, Alpha Centauri to Omega the Engineer, Time Lord Victorious, the Doctor, who lost everything. Cursed to fight a war I could never win, on a day I could never lose sight of, with a cost I could never forbear, till I get a second chance with the howling of a wolf. Howl away, rose-red reveler. Button up your violence into a thing I can bop, and burn away the universe again into the easy answers I always craved. Just one push and one bark. Fights. Be one. But it was always the easy mark, killing and being that man with a gun, when there should have been another way, when monsters bite and you don't bite back, but show a better way to live your life and push back the tides of ill reason and dissonance and say, this is right and this is just and I will do what must be must, but I will trust and love and not give up and not give up. The Doctor. He has been called so many things. A warrior, a madman with a box, or whatever he is, whatever he does, and makes it okay. Maybe it's not good or fixed or right, rarely perfect. Sometimes he has to fight, but he always makes it okay. And never leaves till what was wrong is gone once more, and the people there have been given the chance to endure. Sometimes there is loss, friends pass away, shoved outdoors, or their thoughts wiped away, but all that loss just makes him the man you can trust to say no more with injustice at hand. Saigon. Oh dear, it's you and it's me, and we're all evil pending which side of the table we're on, but a flick and a wave, and we all have the same right to live despite our sanctimonious death planned in zeal, a perfect peace for once. Elizabeth. Throwing confetti, isn't it grand? But I don't think the Doctor is a marrying man. Paintings. He said. There is more to the canvas than light would first show, and into that swirl of colors we go, into the storm of Gallifrey's fall, and await no more and nothing at all. The War Doctor. You were so old, so worn, killing and fighting as you'd once forsworn, but that day is done, your day has now begun, and you still have a choice to be the name in your head, or exactly what you dread. Bad Wolf. She howled away at the nature of creation, barking at the fibers that make up the time-space continuum, and those molecules, atoms, and vibrating strings all bowed to her rule in the sea, sailing the way she told them to be. Her paws on the deck, slipping into the water, yet never wet, waiting a moment till she found him so lost, and finding that moment, brought him back to the start. No, sir, all 13. For oh so long we fought that war and died and fell on repeat, re-round and reburied. The time war went on till our prodigal son came back home. Every one of him for hundreds of years, working to save the home that he jilted, he fled to wander, pacing on the sunlight like he could be free of that light if only he blinked. And now he comes back, all of him, one by one, the past, the present, the future. It's all more wonderful than we could call the dream of. For when the doctor calls, sometimes everybody lives. Dreams. Clara often asks me if I dream, and I do. I dream of the past and a future I'll share with you. Tumbling through stars to find home, off on a new journey through unknown toils. Finding so many gloried spoils, but taking none, and wandering on, just as the doctor has always done. Thank you. All right, so it's a good time to take a little spot to tell you about what we do here. So I come all the way to write this show and perform it here every month. So we don't have a box out yet, but if you feel like giving anything to contribute to me coming out here, I do take tips. You can also find more about what I do at jameswilder.com. It's spelled just like my name, W-I-L-D-E-R. So, oh, good. We have a picture coming up here. There we go. All right. Good. So there's the tip jar if you feel the urge. Thank you. All right. So yeah, and we're part of Southgate Media Group, and of course, hosted here at the wonderful Blue Box Cafe. So those of you watching live, it's amazing. The food's great. Try the BLT. Now, usually we have one fantasy story and one sci-fi story. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to have one story that's a mix of both sci-fi and fantasy. It'll be an interesting little shake-up, and we'll see how it goes this week. So, get ready to take a wild ride with Knights and Dragons. The horse was exhausted. He'd ridden it too hard that day, but the urge to get where he was going had pushed away his sense. They were moving at a slow trot now towards the fire in the distance. Easy, girl. We'll rest up soon. He patted her gently on the neck, wishing it was without his gauntlets. Finally, they were close enough to the fire. He could see a lone figure sitting by it, who rose, a hand on the hilt of the blade. Stop. Stay who you are. Sir Archimedes of the House on Arabe. I'd like to use your fire, if you don't mind. My horse and I can't travel much farther. The figure looked up them, down them, and then nodded. And tie your horse up by mine. There's a pond by the tree you can drink from if you leave the rope slack enough. You're welcome to the stew as well. If you try anything funny, and I'll gut you. Fair enough. The figure's voice was funny. Higher than he expected. Still, no complaints from him. He tied Esmeralda up at the tree, grabbed a bowl and spoon from his saddlebags, and clomped over to the fire. The figure was in fact a woman. She had red hair, cut short to fit under the helmet laying beside her, and the look of someone who'd been in a lot of sword fights, with the nicks and scars of swordplay visible all over her form. Arch ladled out some soup, sat down on a rock. She had already taken a convenient tree stump, and awkwardly began to spoon soup in through the visor gap in his helmet. She looked at him like he was an imbecile. You know, your helmet off. He swallowed the spoonful of stew and shook his head. No, I can't. Anyway, I'm sure you know what's at the end of this road. She got up, stirred the stew, and ladled herself another serving. You tell me. As if on cue, another figure began to approach through the darkness. Both of them reached for their swords. The woman called out again, "Stop! Who goes there?" The approaching figure stopped for a moment, as if unsure, and then replied, "Just a bard passing through, looking for a coin or a fire." The woman glanced over at Arch again. And closer. Then approached another woman. This one in garb, most bizarre. She wore a long brown coat, on the breast of which there was an emblem of a sun and a moon that had crossed their forms together. Her blonde hair was shaved completely along the left side of her head, all the way from the temple down, and the rest was combed over to drop down to the other side, falling just below her jawline. What's your name, Bod? The woman kept approaching. I'm Kinnan Jans. I hope you don't mind my intrusion. The redhead gestured for her to take a seat. What are your names? She asked plainly. I'm Lady MacLeod, the Knight with Songbird. This is Sir Archimedes of the House Honorabe. My squire's around here somewhere. He trailed off the end into a grumble. I'm pleased to meet you both, said Kinnan in the same monotone she said everything in. You're welcome to the stew. Jack made too much again. Jack's my squire. Kinnan's face showed no tell, but her eyes to Arch showed a flash of recognition. Jack would be a squire then, Songbird nodded. And you, Sir Archimedes, I see you're still wearing your armor. Songbird here took it all off. You know something I don't about her? Arch shook his head. I can't actually take it off. That's why I'm here. You were saying that before she arrived, Songbird said, gesturing at Kinnan with her spoon. So why can't you get out of your armor then? Arch sighed. Well, you see, I've been cursed by the queen of this land. I accidentally insulted her taste in wine, and then she lay a spell on me that makes it so I cannot leave my suit of armor until I complete the tasks she set forth for me. Arch said. Then we're on the same place to the same place, I'd wait, Alice replied. You're off to rescue the queen's daughter from the dragon's tower, aren't you? He nodded in reply. Are we at cross purposes? Bird, I just want this curse released. If you're after the reward, you can have it, he said. Lady Songbird, another voice yelled. I found some berries for us. Jack, Kinnan said. Yes, Songbird replied. He approached with a bowl chock full of blackberries, which the four of them split between them. Songbird reintroduced everyone, and then they settled back in. So then, Bod, why don't you sing us a song? Kinnan stared back at Songbird. Songbird stared back at Kinnan. Jack and Arch glanced between them. Sure, Kinnan replied. I must warn you, though, was a good bard. Get the part about dual dance, make a little love, but what exactly does get down tonight mean? Arch whispered. Heck if I know, Songbird replied. They've been riding for some time now, Kinnan walking beside their horses. She was wearing unusual white pants, but they didn't seem to be stained by the mud. Their guest was, but he was fairly certain she wasn't actually a bard. They'd have to keep an eye on her. There it is, Songbird said, pointing over the hill they were cresting towards the tower that was rising into view. The dragon's tower. If we can get in there and slay the dragon together, then get the princess out safely, we can get everything we need. Not want, Kinnan noted, and held her glance up at Alice. I have people who need this money more than I do. I am responsible for them. Songbird checked her sword. They need me, and Arch needs to get out of his armor. So need. Kinnan nodded. Why exactly are you here then? Kinnan narrowed her eyes as Alice reached down to reassure her horse. I'm here, she began, on this dragon, looking for new stories. After all, oh, the songs they will sing, etc. Alex scrunched up her lips to the left. Sure, right. Do know no knights have returned from the tower, right? Kinnan nodded. All the better the song will be if you succeed, then. They rode down the sloping hill to the tower, which loomed over them. It wasn't actually a very old tower. It looked like it had been constructed recently and fairly hastily. Recently for a tower, so maybe a decade ago, maybe a decade and a half. The walls were no-nonsense, rough stone blocks which rose up to an equally simple parapet at the top. There was no ornamentation on the tower and no door, only a charred archway large enough for two people to walk abreast, a bit cramped with their shoulders rubbing. So, this is it, Alice said. I'm not sure what I expected. It looks awful simple for a tower. There's hardly any ornamentation on the thing, Arch said. If by hardly you mean none, Kinnan finished. They knew she was right. Tell me, Bod, In Songs of Dragons, don't the beasts usually prefer rich and ornamented palaces to make their foul nests? That's fairly regular in most Western mythologies about dragons. Western? Arch said. Forget it, Kinnan said. Right, so I guess we need to head in. They rode their horses to a tree and tied them up and put feed bags on them, then changed their minds and let the horses loose. If we don't come out, no use letting them die, Alice said. Together they gathered outside the entrance and looked into the darkness beyond. So, do you want to draw straws or what? Arch asked. Alice rolled her eyes, put her helmet on, and stepped into the unknown. Her boots clanked on the stone floor. Even so, she moved carefully. Arch followed her, and Kinnan took up the end of the line. Alice half expected traps as she walked, but the only change they found was when her foot crunched down instead of clanked. They stopped, and she reached down and felt the remains of a skull. "What is it?" Arch whispered. "The last group of unfortunates." Ah. They felt along the walls and creeped through the hall till eventually they found a set of stairs. They carefully advanced upwards and found themselves in a circular room that took up the whole floor of the tower. Scorch marks lined the walls, and a few slits in the walls let in air and fading sunlight. Blackened steel ladder descended from a closed trapdoor in the ceiling. They stepped into the room and examined it. Something struck Songbird as odd about the room, but she couldn't quite place it. "Looks like the only way is up," Arch said. He was right, of course. "I'll take first this time." Arch climbed the ladder, and when he reached the trapdoor, took a deep breath, and turned the handle on it to undo the latch. He pushed up, and the other two followed him as he signaled it was safe. Arch climbed up into a girl's bedroom, the bedroom of a girl who had been there for a long time. Old stuffed animals sat on shelves, full of tons of books that varied across the age spectrum wildly. Doors with a latch were set onto one wall, and directly across from it was a large four-poster bed, complete with canopy, where a teenage girl sat wearing a beautiful and ornate blue dress. Her hair was black, long, and intricately braided. One of her shoeless ankles was tied to a thick shackle leading to a big chain. That was anchored to the wall. She didn't look as happy to see him as he'd expected. He climbed up and bowed as Alice and Kinnan scrambled up behind him. "Princess, my name is Sir Archimedes of House Honorabe. This is Lady Songbird and the Bard Kinnan. We've come to rescue you." The girl smiled politely. "Okay, well, thanks for coming, but actually, you should all leave. No rescuing needed. Sorry." "Hi." Alice looked down at her ankle. It doesn't look like you aren't in need of rescuing, to be blunt," she said. "Really? I like it here. It's a very nice tower. Look, there's even a bookshelf. No need to worry." She awkwardly made a gesture with her arms spread wide as to say, "This is all I need." Princess, please. You've been here a long time. There's a whole big world out there ready for you to explore." "Nope. Fine. Seen that world, not my thing. Personally, this room is the best." Kinnan began walking through the room, examining the walls. "There is literally a dragon keeping you here," Arch said. "It eats people." "Yes," the princess said angrily. "It does. So get out of here before it returns. How many heroes have come here to rescue me? I've lost count." "I really have. They all died because they're stubborn like you and won't leave." The iron doors and swung one open, revealing a balcony in the sunset. "The dragon will be here when it's night. You need to leave. The dragon will kill you." Arch shook his head. "So that's why you're pretending you like it here. You're tired of people dying for you." The princess looked even angrier and on the edge of panic. Please, you have to leave right now." She ran up to them and unsuccessfully began to try to force Arch and Alice towards the trapdoor. Go now before it eats you." Alice grabbed her by the wrist, and Arch began to look for how to disconnect her shackle. No. Please stop. You can't unshackle me. You can't do this. Let me go." The princess cried. Kinnan's eyes went wide, and she looked over to the trio. Arch pulled out a connecting pin, and the chain came off the shackle. "Aha! Done." "No!" the princess cried. Kinnan walked towards the three of them forcefully. "Princess, how big is the dragon?" "It's big. It's huge." "Then how did you get into the lower level when there is only a human-sized door? Then how did it get into the lower level when there's only a human-sized doorway?" The princess stopped fighting back, and the sun lowered on the horizon. "Run," she said. The princess began to retch, and as she did so, her mouth began to elongate. Her skin began changing color, becoming a dark gray. Her pupils turned to vertical slits, and she started hunching over, her shoulders beginning to rise up under her dress to break the fabric. Archanalis stood stunned, so Kinnan ran forward, jumped, and kicked the princess in the side so she fell through the trapdoor, hitting the edge as she fell. They heard her body make a cracking thud on the ground, a horrible sound, and then the sound of the dress ripping apart and the howling screech of a dragon. Kinnan slid down in front of the trapdoor with her landing and closed it, latching it so they heard the howling screech turn into a crackling inferno. The trapdoor grew hot enough it changed color slightly, with a small column of flame rising up from a hole just big enough for a chain to be notched into. "So," Kinnan said, "I'd say we found the dragon." They spent the night in the room, listening to the dragon thrash around in the room below. An animal trapped in a cage. They'd managed to get a few hours of rest between the noise, only to be awoken each time by the dragon screeching and slamming itself into the sturdy walls. So, Alice began, "I don't think you're really a bard." Kinnan looked over at her. "No." "So, who are you and what are you doing here?" "I'm a traveler. I protect places, and I'm here on an investigation." "You've had suspicions the princess was really a dragon?" Arch asked. "No, but I've been looking at people similar to the princess. I'm trying to understand them. Princess Sides is certainly the first person I've ever met who shapeshifts into a dragon. For the record, but I think it's still useful information." "So this whole thing has been a trap for heroes. Get them to go out and save princess and then lead them into a trap," Alice mused. "The queen get out of all of this?" "Let me take a wild guess," Kinnan monotoned. "You're secretly funding an underground resistance to the queen." Alice's jaw dropped. "Who told you that?" "You. Well, more like I'm good at putting two and two together. I figured out she was the dragon before she killed us. Remember? That was certainly true. The dragon thrashed beneath them, underscoring the point. So the question is, what are we going to do with the princess?" "Only the dragon that has slain countless knights. You really think we can let a monster like that live?" Alice said. "Do I?" Kinnan raised both eyebrows very slightly, which struck them as both the most expressive thing they'd seen her do. "Consider the opposite. This is a young woman who's been chained up her whole life begging people to leave her alone so she won't kill them when she becomes an uncontrollable monster. Is this her fault?" Alice bowed her head a little. "So, well, when you put it that way, so we don't kill her," Kinnan concluded. Hold up here. You're just making that decision?" Arch said. She looked at him, her feelings on him, and it sort of angered him. He couldn't read her one bit. "Yes, unless you have a counterpoint for why murdering children is okay." "She's a danger to everyone around her." "Only because the queen tells everyone to go kill her. Tells knights she doesn't want around to go kill her. Her enemies in court. People who stand up too much for the common folk. I'm just guessing. So tell me I'm wrong." Arch and Alice exchanged glasses. "You're not wrong," they said in unison. Kinnan looked out the window. "So we just wait till sunrise." Princess, Graylin sighed, woke naked in the transformation room, the charred threads of what was left of her dress in a few heaps. On the floor, she felt her ankle and found the chain had been undone. Rolled up in a ball, covering her face with her hands. She'd eaten those people, just like always. The last thing she remembered was telling them to run, and then she was the dragon, and... Wait, she stuck her hand in her mouth and felt around. Her mouth did not taste like blood and flesh. There were no bits left in there. She sat up and looked around the room. No bones. No corpses. She stood up and crossed her arms, trying to keep her heat in. The morning was chilly, and having no clothes did not help. Cautiously, she walked around towards the ladder and called up on it. "Don't open it up if you are, but are you alive up there?" There was a pause, and she assumed she'd been too optimistic when she heard someone call down, "Princess, is that you?" "It is. Could you please throw down something from my closet?" Please don't look down. There was a scrambling from up above, and a simple dress came down the trap door, along with some underclothes. Graylin put them on and climbed up the ladder. At the top were the 3 people from last night, the 2 knights and the strangely dressed bard. I'm very glad you all survived, Graylin said. I'm Princess Graylin Scythes. No one has ever survived the night here before. So we noticed, Songbird said. I suppose it's best if you get it over with, Graylin said, pulling her hair to one side of her neck and getting on her knees. She closed her eyes. Quick. The 3 looked at each other, and Arch reached down, taking her hand. She opened her eyes and looked up confused. Did you miss me turning into a dragon? I'm the dragon. If that wasn't clear, I eat people, so you're supposed to kill me. I tried to think of how to make it clearer. I'm evil. There is a dragon. You need to kill me. If you were really evil, you have asked for us to leave and tried to persuade us, Kinnan said. You're not evil. Sadly, you're not that important. What? No offense. What Kinnan means, Alice said, is you didn't choose to be put in this tower, did you? Or for knights to come here to fight you. You were put in a situation where you couldn't help but do bad things. You didn't have a choice. Graylin looked to the side, her head down, her eyes inspecting the hound's tooth pattern on the rug. Kinnan knelt down. It was your mother, the queen, who put you here, correct? To protect people from what's wrong with me. She's the one sending people here for you to kill. Graylin looked up, shocked. What? You're lying! She sent Lady Songbird and myself here to rescue you, Arch said. All those knights? I thought they just... Graylin was holding back tears. I still killed them, though. I'm an animal when I'm a dragon. I just want to feed. Do you keep your memories from when you change? Kinnan asked, and Graylin nodded. Kinnan looked at Arch and Alice. Arch, whose face was trapped under the helmet. Alice, who had fought in so many battles. Kinnan had seen them before and would see them again. The faces repeated. She knew them, maybe better than they knew themselves. The aesthetics changed. Sometimes the motivations changed, but there was something deep down that was the same. It often wasn't what people expected. She'd run into one person who she'd found their most consistent characteristic across their infinite lives was a love of peppermint, and another whose was a fierce loyalty to their friends. But there was always something the same. Let's stay here one more night, Kinnan said. Are you crazy? Said Sir Arch. She turns into a dragon. And as we proved, we're totally safe in this upper room. You 2 can stay up here, and I'll stay with the dragon. Pain, Alice cut in. It will literally eat you. She's right, Graylin whimpered. Kinnan knelt down in front of Graylin, and with her thumb and forefinger, turned her face up to look at her. I've seen a lot of things. More things than you can imagine. You know what I've learned in all that time? Graylin shook her head, moving Kinnan's hand back and forth. I've learned that you can't change what's been done to you, but you can do what you can to manage it. And if you can find the right steps, you can manage it. The only solution isn't the first option you found. It's not just between hurting other people and holding yourself up in this tower till you grow old and die. Kinnan rolled her sleeve up and pointed out some circular scars on her inner arm. I was a young girl. Some people thought they could make me their toy. And part of that came from making me afraid of myself and making sure I didn't have the power I was truly capable of. Why do you think you're not dead? There's something inside you they're terrified of. Something they don't want you to know. She held out her hand to Graylin. It was a strong hand, calloused and tightly muscled. Give me the chance to show you you're strong. Graylin looked up at the 3 of them. The other 2 seemed a bit amazed Kinnan had just said all that. She looked back down at her hand and slid her own into it. I'll give you that chance. They wasted the day playing cards. Alice and Arch got the horses back and led them again, and then they took turns telling stories. Kinnan was a bit hard to listen to because she barely ever broke her monotone, but it was still a good story. Alice's was probably the best, as she interspersed it with song and had the best singing voice Arch or Graylin had ever heard. Arch's story was decent, and Graylin's was clearly from one of her books. When night began to approach, Graylin went downstairs with Kinnan and stripped down while Kinnan turned her back and then wrapped herself in a blanket for modesty. You can turn around now. Kinnan did, and could tell Graylin felt awkward, wrapped only in a blanket. It's okay, Kinnan said rather ineffectually. She didn't really know what else to say, then gave up and decided she may as well get to work. Here, eat this, Kinnan said, pulling something out of her pouch in her hip. What is it? Graylin asked, peering at it. It looks like bluish, crystally dust. It is crystal dust. Now eat it. Graylin began to eat it. It was pretty difficult to get it down. Ugh. So Kinnan offered her some water, which helped. Okay, now what? Think of what I just gave you as medicine. It should help you control what's happening to you. What if you're wrong? Graylin asked. You'll eat me, Kinnan deadpanned. It wasn't very reassuring. The sun began to drop below the horizon. Graylin began to gag. Kinnan stepped towards her, placing her hands on the girl's shoulders. She could feel them changing under her grip, the bones shifting and pulsing. Now, Graylin, I need you to focus. Remember who you are. Who are you? Graylin, she gasped out. Good. You don't want to hurt anyone, do you? She shook her head, and as she did so, lurched downwards, the blanket falling away, the tips of wings pushing out from her back. Your Graylin scythes. Say it. She screeched. Gray, she forced out, and you don't want to hurt anyone. Her skin was turning to scales, her fingernails were elongating into thick claws, her body was expanding rapidly, her neck elongating with her features, totally breaking the laws of conservation of mass. Well, technically, Kinnan knew she was converting a massive amount of energy into mass and then expelling it, but for most realities, this would be breaking fundamental laws. The dragon in front of her let out a howling screech, and Kinnan got close to it, moving to the side of its head to look into her big eye. Your name is Graylin Scythes, and you don't want to hurt anyone. Say it. The dragon screeched and bit at her. Kinnan moved fast and jumped around its muzzle, forcing its mouth shut with her arms and thighs. You're in control, Graylin. You are Graylin, and you don't want to hurt anyone. The dragon thrashed its head, trying to throw the burdensome riding off, but Kinnan just held on tighter. Think about your room. What was the story you told us about? You told a story. The dragon tried to slam her into a wall, but she moved like a spider down its head and onto its neck. The dragon rolled and thrashed, but Kinnan didn't let go, even as she scurried across his body with preternatural ease. You're not used to this, are you? You want to eat me, don't you? Well, maybe that's the next step. She dropped off the side of the dragon and landed like a cat, rising to her feet and staring the dragon down impassively. It charged her, blowing fire. As the smoke cleared, the dragon expected her to be charred remains, a burning husk. But there she was, a curved line in front of her as though the fire had started right in front of Kinnan. She stared. She didn't blink. The dragon charged again, mouth ready to devour her, and Kinnan did nothing. As the jaws reached the moment or was about to snap shut around her, she stomped her foot down, hard, and pushed her arms up. Like someone had jammed a stick in its mouth. The dragon screeched and blew more fire and shook its head hard enough to break someone's neck, but Kinnan just stood there, placid. Finally, it stopped moving. Are you listening to me? I lied that you'd be able to eat me. Obviously, but these lies are necessary. You aren't dangerous. I need you to realize that. You are great inside and don't want to hurt me. But there is another thing. You can't kill me. You've seen. It tried to bite down harder to no avail. You can't, which means everything you've presumed about your condition is a lie. A lie to make you think you're a monster, that you're worthless, that you could never live life outside of this cage. The dragon's jaws went loose, and Kinnan stepped out from it, placing her hand gently on its snout. You know who tells that to people? Kinnan put her lips to the dragon's ear and whispered, abusers, controllers, people who want power over you, who want to pretend they are your god. She gently stroked the dragon's snout. But you are Graylin Scythes, and you don't want to hurt anyone. You understand that? The dragon looked unsure. It's okay. You don't have to understand it now, but you're in there. This dragon is part of you, and you don't have to do what they want you to do. The dragon rumbled and shuddered, and Kinnan felt something thick and wet hit her shoulder. The tear. She gently stroked the dragon's snout and felt an anger rise inside her. Kinnan knew she would be making someone pay, but she couldn't think about that now. Someone did this to you. You are Graylin size, and you do not want to hurt anyone. Arch and Alice opened the trapdoor after the noise stopped and saw the dragon curled up with Kinnan, the two of them asleep. Arch looked at Alice. I can't believe it. Alice couldn't either. She closed the trapdoor gently and they slept soundly. Graylin woke up to find a blanket over her body and Kinnan standing over her by one of the thin slits in the wall, her back to her. You're awake, Kinnan said. Graylin nodded and then realized she couldn't see it. Yes, I sort of remember last night. Kinnan nodded. You did well. You'll be able to control it more and more as you practice. You'll need more of the medicine I gave you. What was that stuff anyway? Too long of a story to really explain in detail. In short, that dust allows you to tap into a version of yourself that isn't a dragon somewhere else. You mean my daytime self? No. Well, sure. We'll go with that. Kinnan turned around. We'll need to pay your mother a visit. Graylin shook her head. I can't control myself yet. Then we'll wait until we can. We'll send help, voice from upstairs yells. We can hear you guys talking, you know. You guys will really stay and help me? The trapdoor opened and a fresh set of clothes dropped down, followed by an upside-down Alice that hung there smiling. Of course we will. After all, empowering the people is sort of my main interest. Arch groaned from somewhere behind her. That's all she talked about last night, by the way. Gray laughed. Maybe things would be okay after all. Queen Sives drank deeply from her cup and watched the jester juggle some balls again. Things seemed like it would be generally boring day in court, up until the guard ran into the room. Everyone naturally turned. My queen, said the guard, 3 adventurers have returned with your lost daughter. She has been saved from the dragon. She dropped her cup in shock. That's impossible. My queen, I've seen it with my own eyes. This is a joyous day for the kingdom indeed. They are being brought here in the main hall post-haste. The queen tried to think of something to say. How is this possible? She tried to think on her feet, but nothing came to her, and she heard the approaching cheers. Finally, she decided to call the guard. As the 3 adventurers and her daughter came into the room, she screamed, That is not my daughter! There was a collective gasp. Mother, it's me, Graylin said. I've been rescued. I know my daughter. You're the dread dragon in disguise. Don't try to fool us with your sorcery. The guards lowered their pikes into a charging position. Mother, how can I prove that it's me? I'm no dragon. Her mother grinned a wicked grin. Why don't you stay in this room past sundown? Graylin shrugged. If that would prove it to you, that won't be any problem at all. Graylin sat down at a table and smiled around the room. The room was tense as the day progressed, but as the sun set, Graylin simply sat there, picking at a sweet roll. The queen was furious, but kept a polite smile on her face. 4 of them, the whole plotting group, just sat there, politely chatting. Arch, she said she cursed you, correct? How'd she do that? Arch gestured the queen's necklace, blue crystal, that magic amulet. She never takes it off. Kinnan raised an eyebrow. I need to go commit treason, Kinnan said, and got up from the table. Her companions half-heartedly tried to stop her, but in the end, just let her go. The queen watched her approach incredulously. So, you're the foreigner who was riled up. Kinnan cut her off by drawing a blade from under her coat and carefully slicing the chain of the necklace so that she cut not a nick of flesh, and the amulet dropped down to her hand. Casually, she walked back to Graylin as the queen began to gag. I guess you inherited the whole dragon thing. Anyways, this should solve your problems. She tossed the amulet to Graylin, who caught it and clasped it tightly. Kinnan, Alice said, watching the queen's wing burst out of her back as the people in the room began to scream and flee. She's turning into a dragon! Kinnan shrugged and finished her line. Well, you guys are heroes. Go deal with the problem. Arch and Alice drew their swords, and Graylin, clutching the amulet, seemed to make a decision. We're all heroes, she said, and closing her eyes and focusing, began to gag. 2 dresses ripped apart, and 2 dragons screeched at each other, their wings unfurling, belching fire at each other, sending the tables in the main hall flying and burning into the walls. Alice, Arch, and Kinnan began to run towards the queen dragon, 2 of them with swords drawn. As the dragons circled each other, they waited. Graylin tried to go for her mother's neck with a bite, but the queen tried to scratch her eyes out, so she pulled back. Now, Alice said, and the three humans leapt into action. Arch and Alice stabbed downwards, putting their swords through the dragon's front feet, and then pulling to stab their swords between the cracks in the stone floor where they struck. Kinnan leapt and wrapped herself around the dragon's mouth, just like she'd done with Graylin earlier, forcing it shut. Graylin took the opportunity and tackled her mother, holding her to the floor as she thrashed. Gods! Yelled. The guards poked their heads through the crack in the door. Don't just stand there gawking. Chains! As the bishop lowered the crown onto her head, and she rose up to face the crowd. Long live Queen Scythes, the bishop said, and the crowd repeated it with a further. Graylin smiled over at her Lord Protector of the Crown, Archimedes, and Lord Protector of the People, Songbird. They grinned back at her. She'd used the amulet to dispel Archer's curse after some trial and error, and it was nice to see his face. Kinnan stood there next to them, also clapping, but not smiling. Then again, she hadn't seen her smile once, so she didn't take that as an insult. Circumstance, but she finally got the chance to talk to her friends soon afterwards. I owe you all so much. I can't believe how much things have changed in such a short time. My court, we can truly make this land a grand one together. You know I'll help. The people of this land need lots of things. Safety, education, basic health care, Alice said. And I'll definitely stay too, Arch said. I owe you as much. Graylin held her hands out, and they took them and knelt. But she began to pull them up and hugged them instead. Then she turned to Kinnan. Won't you stay as well? I owe you the most of all. You owe me nothing, Kinnan said. You were the one who learned to master your powers. Not me. Anyways, I have other places to be. I'm a busy woman. Please reconsider. I'll check back in every so often to make sure you're keeping control of yourself and leave some dust in case that amulet doesn't do its job by itself. But really, I need to go. I came here to learn about you, Greenland, and I certainly learned quite a bit. I just hope it's useful. Still, I'm grateful. Be better than the people who hurt you, Kinnan said, and turned and began to walk away. We won't forget you. You'll always be welcome. Kinnan turned her head, and for a moment, Graylin thought she might smile. But she turned her head back, and tossing a handful of the crystal dust, forming a great portal in front of her, walked out the door into the great beyond. Thank you. All right. Yep. So, we always finish things off here with a little radio play. And today we'll be doing that once again. Just have to wait for the other people to come up here. All right. Well, then I will stall, using my amazing abilities to stall. Yeah, go for it.
Right, guys, how about a great hand for James Farr? He's amazing. Just so you know, James has 2 of his books for sale back there. All proceeds go right to him. He's got his Doctor Who book. It's an eloquent of, which is a poem for every Doctor Who episode up until and including the 50th anniversary, including the web shorts, right? Yep, so it's pretty much everything. And in fact, that's how we met. And then there's also his novel called 10,000 Dawns, which a lot of his characters come up in his work here at Tales by the Blue Light, which is pretty cool. It's great. James comes from Elkhart, Indiana, but he's moving to Indianapolis. So he's even going to be driving a little bit further for us every month. So that's pretty awesome. James goes to conventions, he sells his books and does his thing all across the country. And we're really lucky to have met him. In fact, we ran into him at a convention in Indianapolis almost 3 years ago. And we were walking around and I looked and he starts talking to me. He goes, I wrote a poem about every Doctor Who episode. I'm like, get out of here. And so I call over Rob Southgate. I'm like, Rob, there's this, I didn't say idiot, but I'm like, this guy. I go, he's crazy enough to like Doctor Who, started up a conversation and, you know, became friends and did some things, which is really kind of cool. Speaking of Doctor Who, we are showing the episodes of the current season live here at the store at 8 o'clock. So whatever event we have, we're going to be doing them. The season finale this year is going to be on July 1st. So that's only, what are we in, episode 5? So that's only like 7 more episodes. So it's not too far off. We're going to be having a big Doctor Who party that day. So if you guys want to come in, we're going to be doing a live podcast. We're going to have people from the Chicago Who, Doctor Who meetup come out. We're going to have people come dressed in cosplay. We're going to hopefully have Nigel the Dalek come out, plus some other people come up. So it'll be pretty neat, but we got that going on. Again, like James had said, if you guys do feel like donating to the cause, he has a tip jar up here. Please do help him out. He does have expenses, gas. That would be great. And we'll be getting that going. If it does entice you guys to say, we have jelly babies, and I also made some homemade jammy Dodgers if you guys want. They're up there for sale, but we're going to finish up here, and then we'll get things going as they go. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll give you the, we'll just change the mic, but you get the witch at the end. So yeah, just stay here. Yeah, just stay right there. So okay, let's do it.
All right. So, as I was saying, we always finish things off with a little radio play, and today we're going to venture into a land of myth and legend where fairy tales are real, just like the last story we read. An adventure we're calling Don't Pass Me By. A far-off kingdom. A princess awakens to the sound of galloping hooves. She runs from her bed to the window, looking down her high tower. Hello, fair traveler.
Whoa, Dapple. Good, Horsey. I think I heard someone.
It's me. I'm up here.
Wait, what are you doing way up there?
An evil witch trapped me up here. My kingdom has been put under a curse, and only the true love's kiss of a night can break the spell. Come, sir, are you the hero I've been waiting for?
Yeah, nope. Sorry, I can't help. Another night. Wish you the best, though.
But you can't leave me up here. I'm a damsel in distress.
Sorry, but I can't help. Look, if I see any other knights, I'll send them your way, okay?
How dare you?
What?
I'm Princess Evermore, first of her name and daughter of the King of Evermore.
Still can't help.
You can't just stay right there. I cannot let this slide. Oh, I wait all this time for a knight to come, and he's just as rude, as ungrateful as you. Oh, let me ask you, I'm coming down.
You're coming down? Wait, she's hanging out of the window. Wait, she's swinging from side to side and she might fall. No, she's found some footholds. She's climbing down all the way down the tower. Oh, she's a little bit from the ground now and she just dropped off. That's awesome, marvelous.
Oh, okay then, mister. You don't want to help me. I'm going to clock you right in the jaw.
But princess, you're free. You're no longer imprisoned. You did it all by yourself.
Oh, I am. Angry and that's ironic.
Yeah, a bit.
Still doesn't excuse you for not offering me help.
Well, you know what? You know when you said that only a true love's kiss from a knight could save you?
Yeah, that's how fairy tales work, moron.
I don't like women. I'm gay.
Oh. Well, you could have mentioned that.
Well, it's the witch.
Draw your sword. I'm in a medieval gown. I can't fight in this.
Come, you vile fiend. Cold steel awaits you.
Be calm. Princess, you have freed yourself of your own strength. And now you have learned that you...
Hold up, wait. Are you saying you kept me in prison and cursed my family to teach me some life lesson?
Well, yes. And it worked, so I don't see why it's a big deal.
That's pretty messed up if you ask me.
You could have just given me a Margaret Atwood book or something.
Look, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Right, let's go into town. I need to find a prince to kiss.
As do I. Later, witch.
But my life lesson! Wait, where are you going?
You forever. And they all lived happily ever after. All right. Well, that does it. Remember, I do have a tip jar. I'm moving soon, as he mentioned. So anything you can give is useful. So that's all for tonight from the Blue Light. Come back next month. We'll be sure to offer you more tales of them fantastic, into the darkest depths of your horror, the brightest flights of your fantasy, and the biggest dreams of your future. From all of us here at the Blue Box Cafe in Eldon, Illinois, keep your blue light shining. There's plenty more to see. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Just a couple other things I didn't mention before. We do have a Facebook page called Tales by the Blue Light. Please follow us. We'll as we are getting a little bit more content, we're going to be posting more and more. Like James said, we are associated with Southgate Media Group. That's where you can find this podcast and other podcasts of all sorts of different genres and things, from Doctor Who to there's a guy that does a whole thing on Bruce Springsteen. There's all sorts of stuff on there if you're into podcasts. There's a lot. We have over 85 channels that we represent, 85 different shows of different things, some that are current, some that are past, some that are going to be in the future. So there's a lot of things, but please keep in touch. You can also keep in touch with us here at Blue Box Cafe. We do a whole bunch of different things during the month. Right now, we only have 2 Saturdays that are booked consistently. The third week of every month, we do Tales by the Blue Light with author James Wilder, where he comes and share his awesome work with us. On the second Tuesday of every month, we do Live at the Blue Box, which is our live podcasting, where we do a different theme each month. Next month, and I believe it's I don't have the date off the top of my head. It's like the 10th of June, whatever that date is. Is that right? We're going to be doing summer blockbuster movies. So we're going to be talking about all the movies that are coming out this summer. So we're going to talk about Spider-Man. We're going to talk about Wonder Woman. We're going to talk about all that stuff. And we may even talk about some of the Star Wars stuff coming out, because we're big Star Wars guys. But we're going to do that. But there's a lot more. We're going to do we're going to do a thing starting in a month or 2 called Arc Night, which is alternate reality, where we're going to turn this into like a theme. So we're going to do a Star Wars night. We're going to do a Harry Potter night. We're going to do all sorts of stuff. But follow us at Blue Box Cafe or Blue Box Cafe 176 on social media to get all the info. We try to update as much as we can on Facebook. But once again, thanks, James, for coming out. We'll be starting the Doctor Who episode at 8 o'clock. And you can follow us on, like we said, on Facebook. Do we have a Twitter or not? I can't remember if I did that or not. I don't think I have a Twitter yet. We'll get there. Sorry, I only have like 2 restaurants and a bunch of pages to run, but we're getting there. But again, thanks for coming out. We'll be doing this again next month. And if you're sticking around for Doctor Who, we'll have that in a little bit. Thank you.
The plays have been a very good thing. Yeah. Yeah, no. Once I have like more time after I move, I might try to explore that.